Good afternoon. I'd like to first thank the organizer for inviting me, coming from an institutional point of view. From this morning's discussion, I can see that there are indeed a lot of room for institutions to collaborate with COPE. So what I would like to cover in this next 20 minutes or 25 minutes or so is to share with you a little bit of the practice in the University of Hong Kong, some of the challenges we face, and also to expand at the end to share with you a little bit of experience that we learn from the Asia-Pacific region. As Liz talked about earlier this morning, this is the 20th anniversary of COPE, and indeed, this is also the 20th anniversary for the establishment of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region as part of China. So as a university, the University of Hong Kong has always been in the middle of East and West, where East and West meet, and there are lots of interesting issues that you could see from various aspects, and in particular related to the topic that we are talking about. So just briefly let you know a little bit about the University of Hong Kong so that you would understand a little bit about the issues that I'm going to cover. It's a comprehensive university with not just STEM subjects, but also include arts and humanities. And we have 16,000 undergraduates and 11,000 postgraduates, but it is worth noting that among the postgraduate students, only the minority are local. The undergraduates are mostly local. Our postgraduate students, about 70% of them are from overseas, and among them, majority are from mainland China. So the student body is quite a mix of local students and students from the mainland. In the UK or somewhere, say, in North America, probably research are driven by more experienced scientists or researchers who may have a little bit of more sophisticated training. However, in Hong Kong and in many places in Asia, the driving force of the research productivity are mainly the research postgraduate students. So therefore, we all need to know a little bit about the landscape of the people who are actually in the front line. We are not that big a university. For professorial staff, it's only just over 1,000. There are other research support staff. Although the University of Hong Kong has celebrated our centenary just a few years back, but as a research-intensive university, we are very, very young. Our government funding, Research Grant Council, was only established in 1991. So as a place, as Hong Kong, going into competitive, internationally competitive research, we only have a short history of just over about 25 years. Our current, the vision of the university is what we call, is like a slogan for us, is so-called the 3+1 I's. Internationalization, interdisciplinary. These two I's basically is calling for really work and research in a global setting. It's not just about Hong Kong or our university, but it's much broader. And innovation, and altogether, all of these three I's driving into impact, is going to be a slightly different and a slightly newer landscape, because it is going a little bit beyond publication and impact alone, because there's a big, wide trend, particularly in mainland China, about innovation, industry collaboration, translational research, and how all of these are actually eventually leading to societal impact. So I can see that at the moment we are talking a lot about publications, but the next phase that we have to look, to foresee is that there will be other type of integrity issues that are to do with industry collaboration and so on and so forth. Just around 2 weeks ago in our university, we held this research colloquium on citations, impact, and international ranking. I don't know about you in here, but in Asia Pacific region, certainly many institutions are looking into ranking, institutional ranking very, very seriously. And when it comes to academic staff, the evaluation, the personal evaluation, very much of it is depending on publication, and in particular, the journals that you publish in. Even though everybody understands that quality research is not necessarily measured by which journal you publish in or the impact factor of the certain journals, but yet, even though everybody understands a lot of the problems in using these particular metrics to evaluate either a person or an institute, yet these are very easy numbers, so therefore a lot of the time it is used, and therefore all of these indicators are driving behavior, interesting behavior. So between quality research, impactful research, there is something that is responsible research. As a university, of course, as I said, as a research-intensive university, of course, the goal is to conduct research, but the outcome of research is not just to publish. Particularly in a university, as I explained about the students and who are the driving force in the forefront of research, our responsibility is also to train the students. It's a place where they learn to do research and also learn to do research well in a responsible manner. So certainly, our university is looking at research integrity issues in a serious way. And again here, in dealing with research integrity issues, this is also something new. And I also have to say that even though I'm using the University of Hong Kong as an example, we're really not that exceptional. It's really just an example that allows you to see at that part, in the region. We only started establishing, have all of these things written out very clearly, have a well-written, well-documented policy on research integrity in 2011. It's only a few years ago. And our practice is already, this is already much clearer than other universities in Hong Kong, and let alone universities in the region. We constantly revise the policies. The last, we revised in 2013, and the latest revision was just done a few months ago in February this year, in particular to deal with protection of the whistleblower. The Vice President of Research and myself, the Associate Vice President, the two of us look after the two different aspects of research integrity issues, either the investigation side or the education side. In particular, the education side, I'm looking after a particular program. And we appoint a liaison person in each of the faculties because we do not have an office of research integrity, but nevertheless, whenever there are problems that are with the frontline researchers, they need to know, they need to be aware who they can talk to, who they can speak to. So therefore, having someone closer to home actually works a lot better. We also have appointed, directors and deputy directors to look after the education side. We have various sort of publications to, allow the students easy access, both online as well as, in print. So as I said, we have our policy on research integrity. We also have set out clear procedures in dealing with alleged staff misconduct, and we have various regulations that are dealing with students' academic conduct. And most of all, we have done quite a bit in promoting responsible conduct of research in the recent years. So I won't bother you with a lot of the details about our procedure in dealing with research misconduct, and just to convey to you that we try as much as possible to allow our colleagues in the university to be aware of all of these policies that are around. And just to share with you a few points of the challenges, in fact, actually, Jane also covers some of these points. What we have faced in the past is that in dealing with alleged research integrity cases, it's fairly challenging in identifying and appointing members in a panel, because Hong Kong is a very small place, although we have 8 universities, each of these are quite small, but everybody knows everybody. So in an investigation, we would require that we have an internal member and an external member, so the external member will tend to be from the overseas. And most of our colleagues do not have training in contributing or working in this type of setting. They may know about external review of journal articles, or they may know how to evaluate a person in terms of promotion and tenure. But when it comes to investigation, actually it requires something slightly different. So therefore, in appointing the right person, sometimes this is already challenging. Of course, we have to stick to the procedures and have legal advice as far as possible and completing on time, because in our regulation we specify exactly how much time you can spend on which particular step. And a short experience, my short experience in dealing with these cases tells me that it is extremely costly. Our legal counsel told us that each of these cases cost us $1 million Hong Kong dollars. So it's really very expensive. Okay, at the end, the cases would be satisfactorily resolved, but everybody involved are really not very happy. They all wish that they don't need to do that. Now, I also would like to point out, in response to some of the discussion earlier, from an institutional point of view, these investigations obviously is, at the end of it, we want to decide whether there is misconduct or not no misconduct, so it's decide on the case. But the end point, we are in a university, so the end point is actually to deal with the person who was being accused of. So it is to recommend appropriate level of sanction if it was found guilty. So there were some of these recommendations would also really, you could prescribe, is not necessarily very satisfactory from various point of view. So these are the difficulties that we would face. But of course, everybody knows, instead of going to face all these investigation, the key is to prevent, to not to allow it to take place in the first place. I'm sure that cases will always arise. Nevertheless, I think education is indeed a very, very important element. So we do a lot in promoting responsible conduct of research. So we have university-wide seminars, and most important of all, one particular thing really works very well for us is that we have funding, research integrity funding schemes for various faculties. So they could use this money to organize various activities. So therefore, other than actually bringing in people from outside to talk about these issues, is that the effect is that we really allow everybody to be a lot more aware of responsible conduct of research and what are the issues. We also use online materials. We develop some of our own. And we have a lot of, over the last few years have developed a lot of material and cases that we can share with others. So this is an example of one of the things that we do is RCR seminars. The main thing is that we have made it mandatory. Everybody have to go through, not just the students. Every staff have to go through. If they don't attend these responsible conduct of research seminars, then they are not eligible to apply for our internal research grants, including their conference grants and so on and so forth. Now, this is a very, very difficult decision to make at first, because we are in Hong Kong, okay? We are quite used to freedom, academic freedom. It was a very, very hard decision to make it compulsory. But once it was made, once the decision was made, actually carrying out, executing it was actually not as hard as we thought. Of course, there are lots of complaints, but at the end, it works well. So far, it has been working well. So we have carried out a lot of these seminars by now. So these are some of the, the things that we develop, and including, case studies that we develop. And I know that COPE also has a lot of resources, but these resources are particularly welcomed in the region, which I'm going to talk about when we come to the Asia-Pacific region. So just one word is that this is just taken from our website on our sort of research integrity. And one point that we have just recently developed is research data and records management. This is part of my work, and we are only at the beginning. And we have just started requiring all the students to have a research data management plan to put in place within their probation period. So they have to have this plan, otherwise they cannot go through their study. We have even required that all the investigators, in order for their external competitive research grants to be released to them, they have to submit a research data management plan as well. But this is an area that we are actively developing, because other than a plan, it is about storage, data storage. It is also about data management and data sharing. And there are lots and lots of products, let me put it that way, lots of products around. And this is really what we see as an area that we're going in and could be challenging for us. Now, I'd like to say a few words about the Asia-Pacific Rim regions. It is important because I explained a little bit about Hong Kong, the University of Hong Kong, and where we are, and the student composition. More than half of the world population actually residing in the Asia-Pacific Rim region. And we produce more than 25% of the research publications in the world. In fact, this is very, very fastly growing. It actually should be close to 30%. And many research are really interdisciplinary, cross-border collaborations involving investigators from every part of the world. In particular, in the Asia-Pacific region, we do share similar challenges. Culturally, we are very diverse, but there is a certain aspect of the culture that is the hierarchical leadership culture, in research environment, and the status of how advanced the research is developed. So there's certain commonality, but of course, every country has their own individual specific issues. I like to say a little bit about China because it is a fast-growing country in economy and everything, and including research and research output. This is taken from Nature Index. It's it's last year. There are new indices coming out, but this graph really presented very, very clearly. On the right shows you the red line. The red line is the fast increasing total research output coming from China. By 2015, China is producing 20% of the total research output. And as I said, by now, it is actually much closer to 25%. So China alone is producing 25%, so in the region it's about 30%. So on the left-hand side of this chart is about the total research output in the top institutions. Some of them are well-known, like Tsinghua and so on, but there are also some uprising universities. And not only are they producing papers, also producing high-impact papers, so to speak, publication in high-impact journals. There are various incentive schemes that China has been putting in to stimulate all of these publication volume as well as so-called quality, including, say, monetary reward for publishing in certain journals in a proportionate manner. And I was also told that this is no longer necessary because everything is going so well. So it's already internally sufficiently competitive. Now, some of this are probably familiar to you. This is a study by two editors-in-chiefs for immunity and infection and bio. So there's a strong positive correlation between impact factor and retraction index. That means that papers that are published in higher impact factor journals had a higher tendency to be retracted. So this is only correlation, okay? This is not really a blanket statement. So as I'm talking about the publication from the region, as all of us aspire to publish in a higher impact factor journals. I didn't say high impact, but higher impact factor journals. So therefore, we are also facing challenges. This is another series of study. In fact, you have seen earlier in the morning, the figure on the left is again describing the number and also the percentage of retracted papers from different countries. On the right is a slightly more recent study by Fang et al. And even though the reason for retraction, quite a large percentage, I think about 60%, are from misconduct, either falsification of data or plagiarism and all of that. Even though there may be a slightly different color, meaning the type of misconduct that are carried out from different countries. For example, India and China may have more plagiarism cases and so on and so forth. Nevertheless, no matter what, retractions are coming from everywhere, all countries and everywhere. So therefore, education and concerted efforts are needed for responsible conduct of research. We talk a lot when we are having this conference, which I'm going to say a little bit, about local colors and culture. But at the end of the day, we are publishing in international journals, and our collaborators are from all over the world. So therefore, there is only a standard. It's just a global standard that everybody have to know, have to be aware of, and practice. So I want to say something about the Asia-Pacific Research Integrity Network. This is a very loosely organized network that is not an organization at all. It's just a group of members get together, and we talk about research integrity issues. So the last meeting was held in Hong Kong. We hosted it, and we have around 110 people coming from 20 countries. Some are very, very small places, but we were all of us were very, very eager to share our common issues, and in particular, what help some of the countries need. See, we have several panel discussion sessions. This is a summary that I sort of take together. So I take just the main things just to share with you, is that the common issues in the Asia-Pacific Research Integrity Network is that there is increasing pressure to publish. And the publications link very, very closely to the career advancement of the researchers. very, very close. Everything is about publication. And in many places, there's a lack of clear policies to deal with research misconduct. Some places have no training at all in scientific writing. It's not about language. It's just that they don't even know how to. There is no formal training. You pick it up yourself, but there is no training. And the feudal work culture and the loyalty, this is a slightly common element in the Asia-Pacific region. Sometimes you do this, and then it will be at the cost of integrity. Sometimes some of these cultural issues are just taken for granted. And surprisingly, there are really a serious lack of understanding on some of the acceptable behavior. Conflict of interest, for example, authorship attribution, research ethics approval. Many places don't. They don't have human research ethics approval for doing medical clinical research. And when there are, so compliance to international guidelines are poor. Sometimes there may be policies, but in enforcement of the policies are not necessarily carrying out very well either. So actually all the delegates in that particular conference actually wish that the network, the APRI network, could help in particular by sharing our education material. Some of them actually request that we tour around and offer this training so that the best practices can be shared. The policy writing, when we drafted our own policy, it took us quite a bit of effort because you could pitch it to be very tight, very stringent. You could also pitch it in, well, it's a wide range. So for those institutions that haven't actually had policies developed, they would like to share some of our experience as well. So some of them also ask for help in developing better and transparent processes, have resource and support to handle misconduct cases, although I don't know how to do that, this particular one, and whistleblower protection, perhaps, measures that can be employed to protect them. And at the end, it's really just making concerted efforts. I think this is what I have, so thank you very much.